So recently, I've been kind of obsessed with 100%ing Pikmin games without a certain Pikmin type. For example, 100%ing Pikmin 3 without yellows, which is so close to being doable that it physically hurts me. What's not close to being doable though, and one I've put off for a long time because it's so difficult, is 100%ing Pikmin 2 without Blue Pikmin. Now, you're probably thinking, how hard could that be? You've already beaten 1 and 3 without blues. What makes 2 so difficult? Well, unlike in 3, blues are actually needed for stuff in Pikmin 2. And unlike in the first game, we can't just use part nudging to solve all of our problems, as it just doesn't work the same in 2. Also, there's caves in this game that are completely submerged underwater, and a whole half of a level is sectioned off by an underwater gate. Not to mention the ploods and treasures that are submerged underwater that also require Blue Pikmin to get. I put this challenge off for a good reason. It was gonna be insanely hard, if not impossible. At least, that's what I thought. Because over the last couple of weeks, there were some major findings in the Pikmin community. Some major findings that were about to blow this run wide open and allow players to 100% Pikmin 2 while only using blues 5 times. I'm Dan from Press A, and this is how many times are blues needed to 100% Pikmin 2. Okay. I'm gonna be real with you guys, the majority of Pikmin 2's beginning doesn't require Blue Pikmin, which made sense because they are the last Pikmin type you unlock in Pikmin 2. But yeah, I was able to collect the battery, bottle cap, orange, pop can, globe piece, unlock purple Pikmin, and complete the tutorial all without the help of Blue Pikmin. Which again, shouldn't come as a surprise because we can't even get them yet. The Awakening Wood is honestly no different. We collect the strawberry, every treasure in the White Flower Garden, and Hole of Beasts, then finish off the day by collecting the Pilgrim Bulb and Geographic Projection. Nabbing ourselves the Geographic Projection unlocks a perplexing pool for us, allowing us to hit up the Citadel of Spiders and unlock Yellow Pikmin, which in turn allows us to grab the Herpes Cream in the Awakening Wood, which is where we find the first obstacle of this run. To get to the Snaggert's Hole and the Birdie Treasure, we need to build these two bridges. The problem is, they're both surrounded by water, and none of the Pikmin we're able to use are able to swim. We could possibly whistle them across the water, but the gap on this side is really wide. So wide that I doubt they would actually make it across. Thankfully though, there's something we can do about this. If we use the 5-man knapsack, a treasure we found in the White Flower Garden, we can lie down and allow our Pikmin to carry us back to base. If we do it right by this wall, they will actually carry us right up it. Now, I've shown off these knapsack tricks a bunch in my Pikmin 2 videos, so if you want a better explanation, go check out those. But basically, all that's happening here is the Pikmin's pathfinding back to the onion gets confused, and they take us up the wall thinking it's the shortest way back to the base. Also note, this can only be done with yellow Pikmin. But yeah, now that we're up here, we can take our weights across the water and make it safely to the double bridges, allowing us to build both of them with ease and grab the birdie treasure by abusing yellow Pikmin's higher throw height and momentum throws, which are just longer throws done by holding onto your Pikmin, running with Olimar, then releasing them. Normally, you're supposed to nab this part with blues using this scale, but we do this to bypass any need to do that. Honestly though, the most shocking part about this whole thing is the fact they didn't just bring it straight into the water and actually walked down onto solid ground. So after that was done, we headed to the Snaggert's Hole, our first cave that actually requires Blue Pikmin. But I use the term requires very lightly, because there's not a lot of water in this cave. There's a little bit on floor 2, but we can just use 2 purple to carry this sushi piece across these boards, avoiding it completely. There's also some on floor 6. So much so that it almost seems impossible to get these treasures. And it would be impossible if it wasn't for the fact that Pikmin 2's caves are randomly generated and change every time you reset the console. So if we get a treasure like this that's blocked off by water, we can just reset until we get a more favorable layout that actually allows us to get it. However, this floor has 4 treasures on it, and not once have I ever seen all the parts accessible without blues at the same time. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I've just never seen it. We were, however, able to collect 3 treasures on our first time through, and then come back and collect the final one after a couple of resets. Oh yeah, and we were able to kill the boss as well, meaning the Snaggert's Hole is totally doable without Blue Pikmin. The next cave we had to get to was the Bulblat's Kingdom, a cave you're normally supposed to enter by breaking this plug, draining the water, breaking down this gate, and finally knocking down this electric fence, which we obviously can't do. Oh yeah, you can also get up here by breaking down this poison gate and using these scales, something I completely forgot was possible, so I just used another knapsack trick instead. If you lay down beside the ledge here, right by the plants, the Pikmin's pathfinding will once again get confused and will bring you straight up the ledge. This now allows us to throw some Pikmin up here, grab the chance totem, and break down the gate leading to the Bulblat's Kingdom. We actually did find out after that there is a way to break this plug without blues, so there's actually multiple ways to make it to this cave. All you have to do is throw a bunch of purples on top of the plug, which will damage when they slam down on top of it. Yeah, if you didn't know, purples damage things with a small slam right as they land. So we could have used this damage to break the plug and take down the gate, no problem. Obviously, this isn't going to help us out now, but it might be helpful later on in the run, who knows. But yeah, the Bulblat's Kingdom is super easy without blues. The only floor that it actually has water is the last one, and your Pikmin just avoid it completely, so it's really not a problem. Once the cave was complete, we did something a little counterintuitive to this challenge. We unlocked Blue Pikmin. Now, you're probably thinking, why would you want to unlock Blue Pikmin in a challenge you're trying to avoid using Blue Pikmin in? Well, unfortunately, we are gonna have to use them. I'll explain why in a little bit, because first we have to head back to the Perplexing Pool, collect the pickle lid, bottle opener, and head down into the Glutton's Kitchen. The Glutton's Kitchen was another cave that was pretty uneventful. There's no water in this cave at all, so I was basically just playing regular Pikmin 2. However, when we got to the final floor, something weird happened that I've never seen before. The egg that's normally supposed to spawn on this plate just never did. Oh! Oh my god, what the fuck? Yeah, I don't really know what happened there, but for some reason, it just spawned way out of bounds. Thankfully, all I had to do was reset the floor and everything was fine, but yeah, it was really strange. But either way, let's talk about why we unlocked blues earlier. So basically, everyone who's played this game is familiar with the Submerged Castle. You know, the cave that basically traumatized an entire generation? Yeah, well it turns out this cave is a huge problem for us. Because literally, the only Pikmin that can enter this cave are blues. I know this because when friend of the channel Lemon attempted to beat this game with only purples, he came across this exact problem. And he actually tried to solve it too, by throwing a Pikmin up on this ledge, whistling it, then quickly trying to enter the cave. But even though the purple was in his party, the game didn't recognize it, and he wasn't able to enter the cave. Because, oh yeah, you can't enter caves in this game without Pikmin. So even though he literally had some in his party, he was not able to enter the cave because they weren't blues. I actually confirmed with the Pikmin speedrunning Discord that the Submerged Castle is hard-coded to only allow blue Pikmin to enter. So yeah, if we want to 100% this game, we're gonna have to use blue Pikmin. And we're gonna have to use them in the Submerged Castle. The only question is, how much? Well, the answer is 5. We have to use blues 5 times to get all the treasures in the Submerged Castle. We need to use them once to actually enter the cave, a second time to get the Diet Doomer, a third for the Confection Hoop, a fourth for Bug Bait, and finally a 5th time for the pastry. Unfortunately, every single one of these uses is needed to 100% the cave. Like I said before, we obviously need blues to enter it. Then, on the first floor, there are 3 treasures which we have to use blues to collect because while there are Bulbmen in this cave, none of them show up on floor 1. They do, however, show up on floor 2, but only 10 of them, which isn't enough to lift the Confection Hoop, which weighs 20. So, unfortunately, blues are needed for this as well. I did save one use in the cave as I thought you would need blues to break down these walls on floor 2. But if you reset enough, the Bulbmen will actually spawn in this little area, allowing you to kill the Mother with Olimar and use Bulbmen to break down the wall. Yeah, it turns out Bulbmen are pretty broken, as surprisingly enough, we were able to complete the entire rest of the cave with just them. You get 10 more on floor 3, so weight stopped being an issue, and they're also immune to every hazard in the game, so that wasn't an issue either. Even the final floor was fine. We just turned our Bulbmen into purples and killed the boss no problem, completing the Submerged Castle while only using blues 5 times. The absolute lowest you could possibly do. So here's the crazy part. I said at the start of the video we only need blues 5 times to 100% this game. And we just used blues 5 times. Which means that's the last time we're using blue Pikmin. But, like, how? We still have so much to do. There's still the shower room, which is completely submerged in water, the second half of the Valley of Repose, which is blocked off by this underwater gate, the second half of the Wistful Wilds, which also has a similar situation, and the treasures like the Ragu lid and the massage girdle, which are surrounded by water and need blues to obtain them. How the hell could we ever hope to do all this stuff without blue Pikmin? Well, buckle up, because we can. It's just very complicated, so let me try and explain. So, I've covered this in other videos, but breaking down this wall in the Valley of Repose without blues is totally possible. It's just the worst thing in the world, so I didn't want to do it in this run. Or ever, actually. To break down this wall without blues, you have to first perform a Pikmin extinction on day 1 by whistling a single Pikmin off this Bulborb and throwing it out of bounds. This ends the day, which you normally can't do on day 1 unless you collect the battery. Then you go to day 2, kill the Bulborb, end the day, and exit out of the file, then start a new one. This sets up a glitch called cutscene timer storage. Basically, when you kill this Bulborb, a timer for a cutscene starts. Once this cutscene plays, it allows you to switch to Louie and complete the rest of the tutorial. The great thing about this timer though is that it's universal, meaning it'll apply to any file you're playing on. So you can start the timer on one file, then go to another and get the same cutscene even though you never killed the Bulborb. This is important because this Bulborb is used to jump up on this ledge so the player can access the emergence cave. Grab purple Pikmin, then break down this bag, which you normally shouldn't be able to do on day 1. But this still isn't finished yet, because you need to perform another cutscene timer storage glitch, but this time with a different cutscene. If you grow 15 Pikmin and take 3 minutes or longer to break down this first bag, a cutscene called You Appear Lost will play. Now, this cutscene works in the same way the other one did, as in it's universal and applies to every save file. So if you start a third save file and set up your Pikmin in a way where you have 12 buried in the ground and 3 in the onion, you can pull those 3 out, which will start the timer for the cutscene. Doing this is infinitely repeatable, as anytime you want to trigger this cutscene, you can go back to the third file and pull out 3 Pikmin. But yeah, essentially, you would go back to the main file, head to the underwater wall, wait 3 minutes, then just before the cutscene plays, you throw a Pikmin at the wall, and they'll start attacking it while the cutscene is active. This happens because some cutscenes in this game allow Pikmin to keep moving even though the cutscene is playing. And they also provide Pikmin immunity from hazards like water. So basically, this cutscene allows Pikmin to become invincible and attack the underwater gate even though they should never be able to. The only problem is, this cutscene only lasts for a couple of seconds, and you only have time to throw a couple of Pikmin on the wall. So, to break down the wall, you have to do this over and over again, which thankfully you can do by going into the cave, saving, then pulling out 3 Pikmin in that third save file. But unfortunately, it takes fucking 12 hours to do. And listen, I love you guys, and I love making videos, but that just wasn't gonna happen. So, I just used blue Pikmin to break down the gate, but just so you know, you do not need them for this, and this does not count as a use. If you guys want these videos out in any kind of timely manner, I can't be spending 12 hours breaking down a wall. Okay? But yeah, with the wall now down, we finally have access to the second half of the Valley of Repose. Kind of. Because what you're normally supposed to do after breaking down this gate is break this plug, which would drain all the water, allowing you full access to the level with your Pikmin. But obviously, we can't do that, so we're kind of in trouble. We also couldn't use the strat I mentioned earlier in the Awakening Wood because this only works if the clog is slightly above the water, which this one isn't. To get around this though, I first tried to whistle my Pikmin across the water, but it always seemed like it was just a bit too far for them to make it. Then I tried throwing them over the snowbanks, but there's invisible walls all over the place, blocking them from the second half of the level. After a bit, I did finally find a way to get Pikmin over to the second half, but it was really slow. Basically, I had to walk a captain around to this higher area, then momentum throw a Pikmin up on the slope and whistle them with the captain up there. But again, this was super slow. It took me more than half the day just to get 25 yellows up there so I could grab this wooden bear. Obviously, this wasn't a good long-term plan because there was still a bunch of treasures and caves in the second half of the level. So I threw some more Pikmin up on the ledge, got them to build this bridge, then developed a strategy to get my Pikmin across the water. All I had to do was have one captain on this shore, then another on the opposite shore. Then I threw my Pikmin as far as I could, swapped them to the other captain, whistled them, and ran to the shore. If done correctly, they would swim super fast and just barely make it to the shoreline before they drowned. I make it sound kind of easy, but it really wasn't. The timing was really precise, and getting a bunch of Pikmin over there in a timely manner was a pain in the ass. Especially when I needed 30 to lift up this stupid crown. It took me basically the entire day to get 30 over there, and they were just barely able to bring it off the ledge before the day ended. Yeah, that's kind of the nice thing about this level, is that the Pikmin are programmed to bring all the treasures back off this cliff, and not back through the bridge where the water is. Basically, why I'm telling you all this is just to nail home how hard it is to get a lot of Pikmin over to the second half of the level quickly, which hasn't been too big of an issue so far, but it's about to be. The temporal mechanism is a treasure that resides inside this fiery Bulblats, who is located on the other side of this pond. Normally, you're supposed to lure him into the water, which would put out his fire, then kill him with blue Pikmin and grab the treasure. But since we can't do that, we have to do something a little crazy. Remember how I said certain cutscenes in this game grant Pikmin immunity to hazards? Well, we're gonna have to abuse the hell out of that to actually get this treasure. Essentially, what we want to do is bring our Pikmin across the water, have our Pikmin start carrying the treasure, then as soon as they're about to hit the water, we want to discover a cave with our other captain, which will play this cutscene and allow our Pikmin to bring the treasure across the water unharmed. Unfortunately though, this is a pretty big body of water, and this cutscene is only like 2 seconds long. So it doesn't give them enough time to get through the water with the treasure. What we need is a way to make the Pikmin, and more importantly the treasure, move faster. And thankfully, there is one. And it's maybe one of the coolest glitches in the Pikmin series. This is called spicy charging, and it's incredible. The way it works is actually pretty simple too. Basically, when you use a spicy spray on a Pikmin, it'll increase its attack power, but it also does something else. It increases its speed as well. You can see here, a regular leaf Pikmin has a running speed of 120. When they're spicied up, that speed reaches just under flowered white Pikmin levels, which, as you can see here, is 204. So, just to make it a nice round number, let's say spicied up red Pikmin have a speed of 200. Now, if you add one of these spicied red Pikmin to a treasure, they will add the speed of 200 to it as well. This is done so the treasure is actually able to move. Whenever you add or take away a Pikmin from a treasure, the game is either adding or taking away speed from that treasure itself. So if you put on a Pikmin with a speed of 200, it'll add 200 speed to the part. And if you take it away, it'll remove it. But what would happen if we put on a Pikmin with 200 speed, waited for it to change, then removed it when it became a leaf and had less speed? Well, it would still add 200 speed to the part, but it would only remove 140 speed. This right here is how you add speed to a part. Spicy up a leaf Pikmin, put it on the part, wait till the spicy dies off, and it turns back into a leaf, then remove it. If you do this over and over again with a bunch of Pikmin, you can have some pretty explosive results. So basically, the plan was to do this, then play a cutscene as soon as the Pikmin hit the water, which would hopefully allow them to bring it across. But this was gonna be a big task. I had to bring over 58 red Pikmin if I wanted to charge the part as fast as possible, which we already know is really slow to do. Then I had to kill the fiery Bulblats and spend most of the day speeding up the part. What was really annoying about this though was the fact that treasures dropped by enemies in Pikmin 2 will just respawn inside that same enemy if they're not collected before the end of the day. So not only did I have to get this part across the water before the end of the day, I I also had to get it back to base as well, which I wasn't even sure was possible. But I didn't have a choice. I had to try. So I spent most of the day charging up the treasure, then right before the end of the day countdown, I put my Pikmin on it, ran towards the cave, and hoped for the best. I don't know, we'll see. We'll see if that works. We'll see if that works, who knows. Oh! It worked?! Did it fucking work?! Where is it? Oh! Let's go! Ah! Somehow, with the power of cutscene immunity and spicy charging, my Pikmin were able to carry the part through the water and back to the ship right before the end of the day. Well, if you thought that was a pretty powerful trick and we should use it more throughout the challenge, you're right, because right after plowing through the subterranean complex, which by the way has no water so it was super easy, we do the exact same thing with the ring buried up here by the snagret. I was a bit worried about this part because it weighed so much less than the temporal mechanism. It only weighs 5, and the temporal mechanism weighs 30, so we be charging it with a lot less Pikmin, which will definitely slow things down. To put it in perspective, I was charging the temporal mechanism with 29 reds each time, but with the ring, it'll only be 4. So it'll essentially charge 6 times slower, and since we have a time limit, that could be a big problem. But it wasn't. It actually worked the exact same way. I charged it up for the entire day, put my Pikmin on the part, discovered the Frontier Cavern, which allowed the cutscene to play, and magically, the part was gone. Oh yeah, and I also collected the artichoke and completed the Frontier Cavern without much issue. There was some water on sub-level 6, but we had 10 Bulbmin, which was just enough to grab both these chest treasures without any help from blues. With the final cave completed, we had 100%ed the Valley of Repose without using blues a single time. The next level I had my sights on was the Wistful Wilds, which was another level that was going to cause us some problems. Mainly because of how much water there was. There was water blocking us from reaching this bridge, an underwater gate blocking us from a treasure and the Hole of Heroes, and every cave in the level had floors with water on it, which would stop us from getting multiple treasures. So yeah, I wasn't super psyched to land here. But either way, the first thing I decided to tackle was the Cavern of Chaos. Like I mentioned before, there is water in this cave, but it really didn't stop us from getting any treasures. There's a chance on floor 4 that the Crab Claw could have spawned inside a Bulblats in the water, but it didn't, so we were able to grab it no problem. Floor 6 did have some treasures in the water, but after resetting the floor a bunch of times, they both eventually spawned on land, and I was able to grab both. The rest of the cave was smooth sailing, and we were able to beat it 100%. To get across the river by the bridge, all I had to do was take my Pikmin for a swim and whistle them to the other side. This allowed me to build the bridge, break down the wall, and grab the mushroom and acorn treasure, as well as open a path to the Dream Den. At this point, most of the level was opened up. I just needed a way to get past the underwater gate on the opposite side. The way you normally do this is by breaking down the gate with blues, then breaking this plug, which will drain the water, allowing your Pikmin to get by. My first idea was to use the strat I mentioned earlier in the Awakening Wood, where you break the plug with purples, as this one seemed to actually be above water. All I had to do was get some purples on the sledge, then knock both of my captains out of bounds with this Creeping Chrysanthemum's belly attack. Once out of bounds, I could walk over to where the plug is and hopefully throw some purples on it, damaging it with their slam attack. But after a couple of tries, it became very obvious that it was not going to work. The plugs were too far away for a normal throw, so I would have to momentum throw to reach it, which was just gonna be way too slow. As you can see, it takes Grass Digger almost the entire day to break the plug, and he's literally spamming throws the entire time. Also, it's really far away from the shore, so getting Pikmin back alive was going to be a problem. Thankfully, I had a much simpler and easy solution as my backup. We were going to charge some treasure treasures and use some cutscenes again. If we use the same trick again, but instead of walking over towards the plug, we head towards the pinecone treasure, we can drop down with our yellows and break down this electric fence. We do this because even though we could get our Pikmin across the water here, there's no way to actually get our captains over here without breaking down this gate. But yeah, once the fence is broken down, we bring the treasure as close to the water as we can, and then get to charging. And go to fucking Shacho. Hopefully they all got on. Hopefully they all got on, I don't know. We might have to do this again. I might have to hit the save state. No, it's gone. It's gone. Yeah, it worked the exact same way as all the other ones, and it was still fucking cool. The distance I had to go across the water was so short that we honestly probably could have gotten away with just using the cutscene, but I wanted to make sure, so we charged it. The good thing is though, is that this means that every treasure above ground in the Wistful Wilds is obtainable without blues. The only two treasures we have left are the Armored Nut, which is inside this creeping chrysanthemum, and the Doomsday Apparatus, which is right beside our base and obviously can be obtained without blues. With all the treasure in the above ground collected, we headed down into the Dream Den and completed a bunch more floors and got a bunch more treasures. That was until we hit floor 10. Floor 10 has a ton of water and a single treasure that spawns inside this jelly float. Thankfully, we were able to kill the jelly float above land, but there was still a whole bunch of water between the treasure and the ship. I originally tried luring it over towards the ship and killing it there, but unfortunately, like most enemies in Pikmin 2, jelly floats have a home area that they don't like leaving, so it didn't work. Now, I probably could have just reset the floor a bunch of times until I got a layout that worked for me, but I had a rare opportunity on my hands. You see, every time we've charged a part so far, it's been above ground, which means we only have a certain amount of time to actually do it. But since we're underground, we could charge a treasure infinitely, since there's no time limit in Pikmin 2's caves. We can just sit here and charge the part as long as we wanted to. And I had to know what would happen. I had to know how much speed we could get on this thing. Could we get it across the water with just charging? What if we made it go so fast that it would not only cross the water, but actually make our Pikmin fly? After 20 minutes of charging the part, it went so fast that it raised off the ground, over the water, and right into the ship. After that though, the rest of the cave was pretty trivial, and we took down the final boss, collecting all of its treasure, including Louie, without a single problem. Now, just because the last boss is dead, doesn't mean we're done, because we still have a lot of treasure to collect. Remember, for better or worse, we're 100%ing this game, which means we have to head to the final cave in the Wistful Wilds, the Hole of Heroes. To actually get to the Hole of Heroes, we have to perform the same chrysanthemum bump as earlier to get our captains out of bounds, because that underwater gate still isn't broken down and we still can't get captains through that way. So I tried to skip again, but instead of getting bounced out of bounds by the chrysanthemum, I accidentally just walked up it onto the ledge, which I didn't even know was possible and is maybe the first time this has ever been documented on video, so that's pretty cool. Either way now, we're out of bounds and can walk straight over to the Hole of Heroes and enter the cave. Like most caves in the game so far, the Hole of Heroes really doesn't have a whole lot of water, but Floor 6 specifically does. It's actually very similar to Floor 10 in the Dream Den, where there's a couple of lods, a bunch of water, and a single treasure. But, yeah, the peanut butter just spawned right by our ship? So, yeah, we didn't have to do anything crazy, we just literally walked over there and picked it up. Floors 11 and 14 also had some water, but both treasures weren't bosses that we could lure out of the water and onto land, so it really wasn't an issue. With the Hole of Heroes being completed, we collected every treasure in the Wistful Wilds without using Blue Pikmin. which meant we now had 2 levels completely finished. The only treasures we had remaining was the decorative goo found in the Awakening Wood, and the onion, massage girdle, ragu lid, bobber, seashell, and every treasure in the shower room, which were all found in the perplexing pool. I knew for sure we could get the ragu lid without blues, and was pretty confident about the decorative goo as well. The bobber and seashell would be super easy if it was possible for us to open up the shower room, since doing so drains the lake in the perplexing pool. But I had no idea how we were gonna do that. Same with getting the massage girdle and the onion. It was theoretically possible I could use the cutscene charge combo to get both of these treasures, but the distance I had to travel was so large, I just didn't think it was possible unless we had a really long cutscene. Which, by the way, we don't really have any left of. There are some pretty long ones at the start of the game, like when Louis finds the red onion, or when you bring a pellet back for the first time, but we've already used those because we've already done the tutorial. There's also cave cutscenes, but since we've already been to every cave, we've already used up all of those as well. Now, my plan was to use the cutscenes for when you collect treasure, or your Pikmin gets set on fire or poisoned for the first time, but it turns out, unlike the other cutscenes in the game, these cutscenes actually freeze Pikmin in place while they're happening. So, using them to collect treasure won't work at all. Which meant we had nothing else to work with. So, I had to restart the run, and not waste the cave cutscenes like we did the first time. Now, I didn't do everything over again, but I did get some of these treasures just to show that it was possible, if you don't waste cutscenes like a complete idiot. To get the decorative goo, all we had to do was head over to where you find blue Pikmin, throw some yellows up on this ledge, use the C-stick to maneuver them as far as we could, then whistle them over to the shore right by the treasure. At that point, I spent the entire day charging the part up until there was literally only 6 seconds left. Then I swapped over to Olimar to trigger the cutscene for the Bulblat's Kingdom, and when I swapped back, the part was gone and made it back to the ship in less than 3 seconds. I was a bit worried about this part because the lake was so big and I could only charge it with 9 Pikmin at a time, but it turns out it was pretty easy. Like I said before, I wasn't really worried about getting the ragu lid because I had done it in another video without touching the water in front of the gate. But doing it that way is really fucking hard, so instead of doing that, we're just gonna use another cutscene. If we come over to this route, we can throw our Pikmin over the wall and get them breaking down the electric fence from inside. Once the gate's down, we can once again charge up the part, trigger a cutscene from the Glutton's Kitchen, then watch as the part mates it back to the ship in a matter of seconds. And yes, all of this is possible to do in a single run, as I didn't use the cutscenes for the Bulblat's Kingdom or Glutton's Kitchen for anything my first time through. I was just stupid and wasted them. With those 2 treasures now collected, we really only had 2 more things to figure out. We needed a way to get the massage girdle, and we needed a way to open up the shower room. Like I said before, opening up the shower room would allow us to get the onion, bobber, and seashell super easily, as well as all the parts in the cave, so it needed to be done. But with both these things, I had no idea what the hell to do. The massage girdle sits on top of this ledge across a massive body of water, and the shower room is blocked by this plug, completely submerged in water, and no, we can't use purples to break it, it is way too deep. So, with nowhere left to turn, I did what I always did when I got stuck in one of these stupid challenges. I asked the Elder Gods of the Pikmin speedrunning Discord for help. And what they came back with kind of shocked me. They were able to solve both of my problems. They somehow got the massage girdle, and even more impressively, were able to open up the shower room without blue Pikmin. Something I thought was going to be impossible, but somehow they did it. Now, you probably want to know how they did it, so let's first see how xHaii obtained the massage girdle without blues. The first thing he does is make his way across these routes with a bunch of red Pikmin. He does this by putting them in the water and whistling them from root to root. Then he shimmies along this wall and throws his reds as far as he can up on this ledge. If you're wondering how he broke the gate down without blue Pikmin, it's actually pretty easy. The top of the gate never actually touches the water, so if you get some Pikmin up there to break it down, they can do it no problem. But yeah, once his Pikmin are on the ledge, he positions Olimar in between the shore and his red Pikmin, then whistles them all to that very same shore. Now that he's over over here, he can throw them up on this ledge and use the C-stick to get them on the treasure. All he has to do now is get another group up there as well, so he can start charging the parts, which he does for half the day, then triggers the cutscene for Louis finding the red onion, which is way longer than the finding the cave cutscenes that we've been using. It's so long, in fact, that even though he's only been charging for half of the day, he's able to clear the entire lake no problem and get the massage girdle without a single blue. Now, you're probably thinking, wait, how did he trigger the finding the red onion cutscene? Don't you normally do that in the tutorial? Well, yeah, you do, but I'll explain everything after, and I promise it'll make sense. Because right now, we have some more shit to explain. And buckle up, because this shit is crazy. I've been doing Pikmin challenges for a while now, so I thought I knew most of the tricks and glitches in this game. But when PikHacker showed me how he got into the shower room without blues, he showed me some shit I had never seen before. This is the Wollywog Super Jump, a trick used to make Wollywogs jump super high in the air and come crashing down onto Olimar, causing him to go flying. I don't know the exact specifics on how it works, but the way I was able to do it was by aggroing the frog with one captain, then getting its attention with another, and as soon as it turned towards the second captain and was about to jump, I bitter sprayed it, then ran away with the same captain. What this does is basically delays the attack that the Wollywog was just about to do. But since it's already set to attack, it's basically locked onto Olimar like a homing missile. So no matter how far you run, the Wollywog will find you and complete its attack. Now normally, if you're looking at the frog, this delay will only last as long as the bitter spray does. But if the frog isn't on the screen, this delay will last forever until you actually look at the frog again. This is because the enemies in Pikmin 2 aren't loaded if they're not near Pikmin and they aren't on the screen. So by not looking at the frog, you're basically leaving him in this unloaded, frozen state that he can't escape from unless you look at him again. Now, to actually get him to jump like this, you need to have him hit some kind of slope. If he doesn't, he'll just come across the screen like this, which isn't gonna help us much. But yeah, once you get the frog to jump like this, all you need to do is lay down with the knapsack and Olimar will go flying. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, that trick is pretty cool, but what the hell are we gonna do with this? How is this gonna help us get in the shower room? Well, let's see what PikHacker does so you can find out. The first thing he does is perform a Wollywog super jump to this spot right here. Then he lets the frog hop over to this square piece of tile, which he'll use as a slope to make it jump. Once he's over there, he bitter sprays the frog once again, uses the rush boots and this bridge to get out of bounds, scurries along this ledge with his yellow Pikmin he threw up earlier, then throws his yellow Pikmin once again on this higher ledge near the shower room entrance. Now that he's all set up, he can turn the camera and look at the Wollywog setting off the jump. The frog then jumps 100 feet in the air and comes crashing down onto Olimar, knocking him onto the higher ledge. Now that he's up here, he uses the other captain to bring one pellet back to the onion, and right as it's about to hit, he throws a bunch of spicy yellow Pikmin at the plug, who will hit it while the cutscene is playing. Remember, Pikmin aren't affected by water while a cutscene like this is playing, so they can break the plug without drowning. Here's a hacked view of what's actually happening while the cutscene is playing. Now, in this example, he used red Pikmin, but you get the point. Either way, the cutscene is long enough for the Pikmin to break open the plug and open the shower room without a single blue Pikmin. Which, can we just say, is fucking wild? So, I do have to explain something. How were xHaii and PikHacker able to use these cutscenes that are usually seen in the tutorial? Those cutscenes being Louis finding the red onion and obtaining a pellet for the first time. Well, the cool thing is that you can actually skip them and it's really not even that hard. All you have to do is start a new file and perform a Pikmin extension on day 1. We do this because the only way you can normally end day 1 is by getting the battery, which would involve growing Pikmin, which would involve watching those cutscenes. But we still have a problem. Even though we made it to day 2 without watching those cutscenes, we still need 35 Pikmin so we can break down both these bags. But how can we grow Pikmin without using any pellets? That's all that's available to us without breaking down these bags. If there were some enemies on this side of the bags, we could use them to grow some Pikmin, but there isn't. Or at least, that's what I thought. Because if we go to day 4, when the eggs at the top of this hill spawn, we can break them open and find matites. Now most people don't know this, but if you land a Pikmin directly on top of a matite, it'll kill it, which will allow you to bring it back to the onion and grow 2 Pikmin. Since the onion spawned 1 Pikmin because of our extinction, we can use it to kill a matite and grow 2 more. Then, we just have to come back the next day and do it again and again, until we have 35 Pikmin. I actually did it myself to confirm that it is possible, and it took me 25 days to grow 35 reds using only matites. Which was kinda shitty, but I wanted to make sure it was actually possible. But yeah, doing this opens up the entire rest of the game without ever having to see these 2 cutscenes. You would just have to make sure that Louie never gets close to the red onion, or that you bring a pellet back, until you get the massage girdle and open up the shower room. And yes, doing this would still be possible while breaking down the wall on day 1. All you have to do is perform the cutscene storage tricks, bulborb jump on this ledge, break down the wall, then kill all of your Pikmin, causing an extinction. But yeah, now that the shower room is open, we can head inside and collect every treasure in the cave, because even though it's called the shower room, there wasn't a whole lot of water inside. There was this spot on floor 5 that always seemed to spawn a treasure underwater no matter how many times I reset though. But all I had to do was collect the other 2 treasures on the floor, then come back to the cave a second time, and the treasure just didn't spawn there. As for the 3 treasures above ground, they were all relatively easy as well. Now that the shower room was open, the lake in the perplexing pool was drained, so we could obtain the bobber and the seashell like normal. However, the onion was a little more involved. To get it, we had to bring a captain over to these scales, then knapsack right on the edge to fall out of bounds. For some reason, this just spawns you on this stone walkway near the base. Not sure why, but it does. Now, we can walk along it and drop down where you'd normally find the onion treasure. After we throw some Pikmin over the wall, we can grab them and use them to charge the part for most of the day. Then use Louie to trigger the cutscene for the Citadel of Spiders, which will get the onion across the water and back to the ship. That is every single treasure in Pikmin 2 obtained while only using blues 5 times. It's a little unfortunate because if it weren't for the hard-coded limitation on the Submerged Castle, you could beat this game without using blues at all. And listen, I know I used multiple save files to do this, but this could all be done in a single run. There are more than enough cutscenes to do all of these tricks, you just have to route everything properly. To end things off, I want to give a huge shout out to PikHacker and xHaii, who are absolutely instrumental in the making of this video. But yeah guys, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next one. This video was made possible through the support of our amazing patrons. I want to give a special shout out to Rebecca Lyons, Layburb, Puddles Megan, Nice Gamer Musics, Serena Bliss, TXCS_14. Blue Pikmin is the best Pikmin, and if you say otherwise, then Louie will eat your soul. Also, this is a completely real name. Young Smokey VP $17, Young Smokey VP 17, Clone Trooper Wheeler, Real Backfish, and Yellow Pikmin are the best.